it is saying a ball is dropped off a cliff or a cliff, so comma, and 2 seconds later another ball is thrown vertically downward with an initial speed of 30 meters per second. How long will it take for the second ball to overtake the first ball? Okay, now it is so important that we illustrate this information on a certain diagram as a very important way of solving physics. So we will say if this was the cliff, we assume that this is the cliff, then we have ball 1 which is dropped downwards. Then according to the instructions, they are saying after 2 seconds, the second ball was released from the same cliff. So we'll say this is ball 1, then ball 2 was released after 2 seconds, which means if we were to draw another cliff here, which is the same cliff here, we'll say this is ball 2. This is ball 2. So now, looking at the instruction, they're saying this one was released after 2 seconds. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? When we come to time, we find that ball 1 is ahead of 2 seconds to ball 2. This is what it means. In this case, since the question is talking about how long, they want us to calculate the time. But how are we going to handle time? Simple and straightforward. Since we know that for ball 1, time is equal to t, which is time 1. Then time 2. Since ball 1 is ahead of 2 seconds to ball 2, then we will say for this time to be equal to time 1, it will be time plus 2. So we have to add a 2 since this one is ahead of 2 seconds. So if we add the 2 seconds to this one, then time will be equal. Another thing, since they are saying how long will it take for the second ball to overtake? The keyword is to overtake. Now, since there was overtaking which was taking place, these 2 balls were starting from the same point. But you find that at a certain point, ball 2 overtook ball 1. What does that mean? That means that the distance was the same. If we assume that this is ball 1, then when it was dropped here, ball 2 came and overtook it. Which means if it was here, the overtaking took place at this point. Therefore, we say the distance from here up to the distance from here was equal. Okay? Now, what are we going to do? We have known to say the distance 1 was equal to the distance what? 2, since there was overtaking. Then we'll go ahead and illustrate these informations. We know that according to the equations of motion, we have the equation which says x is equal to initial velocity multiplied by time plus 1 over 2 multiplied by the acceleration times time squared is equals to this guy. So this is distance. Now, this distance is expressed as height. Therefore, we will say height is equal to the initial speed multiplied by time plus 1 over 2. This acceleration, since it was falling, it was dropped here. And this one was thrown vertically downwards, which means the acceleration was the acceleration due to gravity. In this case, we'll put g here instead of putting a, then t squared. This is the formula we are going to use. Now, we know that time 1 is equals to t. Then time 2 is equals to t plus 2. Since it was behind of 2 seconds, so we have to add 2 seconds here. Therefore, we will say for height 1, it will be equal to the initial velocity. Now, the initial velocity which is here, since it was dropped here, then the initial velocity was what? 0. So 0 times the t is just 0. So we'll put 0 here plus 1 over 2 gt squared. Then, since there is a 0 here, we'll just ignore it and we'll say height 1 is equal to 1 over 2 gt squared. Then we'll come to height 2. Now, what are we going to do on height 2? We'll say height 2 is equal to the same equation which is here. So we'll say ut plus 1 over 2 gt squared. But we know that this time is here. We have to add a 2 here. Therefore, we'll say height 2 will be equal to u open bracket t plus 2 close bracket. We are substituting this t by t plus 2 because for these 2 guys to have equal time, we said we have to add a 2 here since object or ball 2 was behind of 2 seconds. So we have to make sure that we add a 2. Then plus 1 over 2 g open bracket t plus 2 squared. Then from here, we know that the initial velocity, according to the statement here, it is what? 30 meters per second. Therefore, we are going to replace this u by 30. So we'll say height 2 is equal to 30 open bracket t plus 2 plus 1 over 2 g open t plus 2 close squared. Then from there, since we said height 1 and height 2 are equal, since there was overtaking here, then we are going to get this and replace this by its equation and this by its equation. Therefore, we're going to have an equation which seems to be like 1 over 2 gt squared is equal to 30 open bracket t plus 2 close bracket plus 1 over 2 g open bracket t plus 2 close bracket squared. Then from here, where are we heading to? Simple and straightforward. We are going to group the like terms. This one and this are the same. Therefore, we are going to say it is 1 over 2 g t squared minus, this is positive. So when it crosses an equal sign here, it will be minus 1 over 2 g open bracket t plus 2 cross bracket squared is equal to, we can expand this in advance. So before we expand, let me just write it the way it is. So it will be 30 t plus 2 close bracket. Then from there, what are we going to do? Simple and straightforward. We are going to expand this. But before we expand this, we are going to factorize, since we have what is common here and what is common here, which is 1 over 2g and 1 over 2g. So we will factorize it here. So this one will be t squared. Then we'll say minus t plus 2 squared close bracket is equal to, we can expand this to give us 30t plus 60, just like that. Then from here, we will expand this. But how are we going to expand it? We'll say 1 over 2g open bracket t squared, then this squared, so t squared will be minus t squared 2 times t times 2, which is going to give us plus 4t, then 2 squared, which is 4, is equal to 30t plus 60. Then from there, we can see that this is positive, this is negative, and they are like terms. Therefore, the best is to cancel them out. Then we're going to remain with 1 over 2g open bracket 4t plus 4 close bracket is equal to 30t plus 60. Then from there, what are we going to do? We know that g is 9.8. Then we will say 1 over 2 multiplied by 9.8 open bracket 4t plus 4 equal to 30t plus 60. Then from there, what are we going to do? We know that the half of 9.8 is 4.9, being multiplied by 40 plus 4 is equal to 30t plus 60. From here, what are we going to do? We will expand this. Now, when we multiply this, 4.9 times 4t will give us 19.6t plus 19.6, because this times this times this, which is called substitutive law. Then from there, we'll say 30t plus 60. Then from there, we are going to group the like terms. Now, how are we going to group the like terms? We know that this 19.6t is less than 30t. Therefore, we will take this 19.6t to this side so that we don't form a negative number. So we are going to say this which doesn't have negatives will remain this side. Then these which have negatives will go this side. So we are going to say it will be 19.6 minus 60 is equal to 30t minus 19.6. So we have 19.6 minus 60 equal to 30t minus 19.6t. Now, when we calculate this on the calculator, we find that this one will give us negative 40.4 is equal to positive 10.4t. Now, we get rid of this. So we'll say over 10.4 over 10.4. This and this will go. So time will be equal to, so there is negative here. Okay, so which is 3.88 something. So the main interest is only 3.888. So there is a negative here, but we know that time cannot be in negative. Therefore, we will just modulate this and say our time is equal to 3.88 seconds.